Hello. In this lecture, in this video, I will give some brief explanations about the chapter 6 of your textbook, Introduction to Economics 2. We will cover aggregate demand, aggregate supply analysis, and economic stability. So for chapter 6, when we look at the learning outcomes, firstly, we will cover the concept of aggregate demand and its meaning. For the second outcome, we will cover the concept of aggregate supply and its meaning. And then, after the demand side and supply side, we will focus how the general price level and the production are determined in an economy. So after understand this process, we will see how economic policies affect the general price level and production amount. So after understanding this part, for the last one, we will see the general characteristics of inflation phenomenon and the type of inflation in the economy. So for the introduction basically says that, of course, economy is a really complicated structure. So in here, or in economics, or in this level of economics, using these figures, we try to understand the most important or core logic of the economy. So because of that, this is important. I mean that using figures or using graphs is important to understand this process. And in here, AD and AS curves and the equilibrium levels give you some insights about the economic process. Okay. So firstly, of course, we need to understand the aggregate demands. So to see this negative relationship between the general price level and output, so AD curve shows that this negative relationship, we need to understand the effects of price in the money markets. Remember from the chapter 5, in the money market, when there is an increase in price, so there is an also increase in money demand. So this increase in money demand also cause to increase in interest rates. So when there is an increase in interest rate, it means that the cost of financing for the investments also increase. So because of that, investments will decrease. So decrease in investment also means that the decrease in aggregate expenditures and production. Okay, so this shows that the basic mechanism behind the AD curve. Increase in price level cause increase in interest rate. Increase in interest rate cause decrease in investment. Decrease in investment cause decrease in aggregate expenditures, and of course, production. So this downward or negative sloping AD curve shows this economic process. And of course, when we keep or when we assume the constant, the price level, so of course there is a increase or decrease in aggregate demand. They come from different source. For example, increase in aggregate demand or increase in aggregate expenditures means that AD curve shifts to the right, or decrease in aggregate expenditures or decrease in aggregate demands means that AD curve shifts to the left. So you can find in detail in your textbook effect of the expansionary and contractionary economic policies. So these policies cause the shifts in the AD curve. For the aggregate supply, we have a different approach to explain to slope of aggregate supply curve. For example, in here, for the Keynesian region, we have horizontal AS curve because this means that the idle capacity. So Keynesian economists says that there is an always idle capacity in the economy. It means that idle capital and labor. So when there is an increase in aggregate demand, firms respond to increase in demand by increasing production. So there is no price effect, because this means also that there is no price effect. Sticky prices. The other approach, classical approach, says that the economy is always works full capacity. So when there is an increase in the aggregate demand, because of this full capacity, only the price will increase. So that means that the inflation. Okay. But other region, intermediate region between this Keynesian and classical region, says that the aggregate supply curve for the short run is upward sloping curve. So this means that the production continues to increase and the reaction of price will also increase. Like that. Okay. So we use this type of AS curve for the short run. Okay. So, and again, of course, there is a change in the aggregate supply. For example, if there is an increase in aggregate supply, S curve shifts to the right, or when there is a decrease in the aggregate supply, AS curve shifts to the left. So there are different source for this effect. Basically, they come from the decrease or increase costs, or weather conditions, or economic growth. You can again find a detailed explanation in your textbook. So in here we try to understand the equilibrium in the economy. So intersection or point A or intersection of AS and AD curve give us the equilibrium level in here Y0 and equilibrium price level P0. Okay. So why we need this equilibrium level? Because using the AS and AD curves, we can easily understand the reason of inflation or short-run economic growth. For example, for the first step, our equilibrium level point is a D1, which equals to P1 price level and Y1 income level. So when there is an increase in aggregate demand curve shifts to the right, and it means that the economic growth from Y1 to Y2 and inflation from P1 to P2, or decrease in aggregate supplies means that AS curve shifts to the left. So this also means that the negative growth in the economy, and again inflation or increase in price level. So using AD and AS curve, of course, you need to know that the factors affect the aggregate supply and aggregate demand. You can easily show that the reasons of inflation or economic growth in the economy. Okay. For example, when we use these curves again, we can easily understand the inflation or reasons of inflation. For example, for the first one, as I said, there is an increase in aggregate expenditures or aggregate demand, and this means that the demand pull inflation, or when there is an increase in costs, production costs, for example, it means that the AS curve shifts to the left, and because of that there is an increase in the price level. So this means that the cost push inflation. Okay. Or, for example, we can easily understand the inflationary monetary policy. Inflation monetary policy basically means that when you always increase the aggregate demand in the economy, so this increase in aggregate demand always cause more and more higher level inflation. So this is a really problem for an economy, because when you look at this figure, economy, for example, for vertical AS curve shows that the economy is on the full capacity. So because of that, when there is an increase in aggregate demand, there is no increase in the production. So this means that there is only increase in price level. So when you always keep this economic policy, it also means that expansionary economic policy, this expansionary economic policy causes to increase in the price level and causes to inflation problem.